listening to the other guys in my group. They supported me in launching the coaching business. What it taught me is you have to step into the uncomfortable to grow. And if you never do, this is fine, but growth will not be happening.
It's amazing how you've turned personal pain into purpose.
There is a lot of guys in my group who are diagnosed with what is called azoospermia, where you have zero sperm in your semen, and so you cannot conceive naturally. And if you look at the profession as a whole, there is a shortage in terms of male therapists right now. And so it's not very easy for men to find the support. 1 in 6 couples today are going through this journey and are struggling to get kids. As you said earlier, half of the equation, half of the time is men. And maybe it's not exactly half, but roughly speaking. And at work or among my friends, I've said, if you ask and look around, you always find somebody going through it right now. And normalizing that, it's a fact of life. There is a difference between knowing you're not alone and experiencing you're not alone.
Welcome, Johan. I am so excited to finally see you in person. As you know, I want to let our audience know that we have actually met on IG Live post-pandemic. So finally get to see you in person. And I'm so excited about the conversation we are going to have today, male factor infertility, which has not been talked about in depth because there is still so much silence and stigma. But I want to start with letting everyone know that you have a phenomenal background. You are a scientist by trade. You completed a postdoc at ETH Zurich. You've led projects at NASA. Before fertility coaching, what did life look like?
Wow, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. Hard to believe it was already many years ago when we first connected on Instagram.
My pleasure.
It's been an interesting journey. I started after some time at MIT in oil and gas, and I worked there for about a decade. And then I decided to transition to something different. And I'm in the beauty business now. At the same time, during the pandemic, I realized that there was not much available for men going through what I went through a decade ago, and decided to start a coaching practice. And ever since, I've been super grateful that a lot of guys connect monthly with me and participate in the container that I'm creating.
It sounds like your scientific training gave you a deep appreciation for analytics and problem solving. But fertility is such an emotional journey. When did these worlds intersect for you?
So I have 2 kids, both born via IVF. My daughter is 13 now. So everything started, let's say, about 15 years ago. And at the time, we had a stable job. Like, we actually went through what we call the American dream. So I came here in 2007 to study at MIT, then landed a job in the US with my wife, had bought a place to live. It was, pitch perfect. And then was the time we got married. We wanted to have kids, and nothing happened after a year. And at that time, my wife was like, maybe we should consult, see a doctor. And I was very much against it, thinking, no, let's try a little bit longer. And she did a bunch of testing and everything came back normal. And then she said, maybe you should also get tested. And it never crossed my mind that I should, and it could be me or coming from my side of the equation. I went to a urologist, did a semen analysis, went through the shame of going through that. And I remember him calling me in the lab, looking under the microscope, which I found at the time intimidating and quite odd. And then he took me in the office and said, well, you have what is called oligospermia. Your count is 0.5 million. A regular count is around 20. There is only 2 options moving forward for you. One is varicocelectomy and the other one is IVF. And at the time, to be very transparent, I had no idea what he was talking about. So I went back home and told my wife.
What was your reaction when you first heard the diagnosis? And I would imagine it brought a mix of like hope because it still could be done with the medical intervention, but a lot of uncertainty, right?
Yeah. So back to what you were saying before, being a scientist, I know that any test has kind of a margin of error. And the first thing that came to my mind is, no, it cannot be. I've had no signs whatsoever. It was never something I actually considered could happen to me. So I first thought like, maybe let me, investigate, Google it. And there has to be a repeat. Maybe, the sample was off because I collected at home and then I brought it to the place. And I was kind of, I would say, in denial, mainly thinking like there has to be a repeat test. Some is off. I don't really understand that. And again, I was clueless as to what the second step would be in case, it was confirmed, because I had no clue about the IVF process, just, what I heard about it. And that was not much.
You mentioned all these emotions that popped up for you. How did they show up for you personally? And thank you so much for sharing this.
So the number one emotion, my go-to, which is for people who know me, is anger. So I felt punished for something I didn't deserve. And in this case, after it was confirmed and I was sure that, the diagnosis was oligospermia, I was angry at the world. I refused to get help, even though looking back, not much help was available for men. We were offered therapy. My wife and myself hadn't done it ever, didn't want to start at that time. And then I felt a lot of shame. I was also experiencing a lot of guilt because I felt because of me, from what I heard, there were injections, it was a lot of hormones, roller coaster of emotion that we were about to, engage in with my wife. But I felt kind of like very guilty that she had to go through all this because of me. And that this is what actually activated the first step for me to go through surgery and do the varicocelectomy, because I felt I owe it to her at least to try and improve my numbers before we go through this very emotional journey together.
How did infertility challenge your sense of masculinity?
It was something that, I'm going to repeat something I hear a lot in my men's group. You feel less of a man. And by this, I mean, ingrained in our DNA is this idea that we need to procreate, to expand the family so that our name will actually keep going and be passed on from generation to generation. And I felt like this was taken away from me. I also experienced shame in the way that, ironically, even though this has nothing to do with performance in the bedroom, it's associated with that. And when I started doing men's groups and started to open up about it, some guys were actually coming to me and asking, do you need Viagra? Or like, there is a lot of Viagra. There is a lot of misconceptions around that. Some of it associated with kind of the mixing of two complete separate issues. And because of that, and it's related to, the act of, intimacy not being able to lead to a positive pregnancy, I felt a lot of shame. And at the time, we decided not to talk about it and keep it private. So the only two people who knew were my wife and myself. And I was not willing to talk about it, not on a podcast, not to anyone but my wife.
That's such an important point, because fertility is often associated as a woman's issue, when in fact all of the, or half of the cases nowadays are male factor infertility. What impact did this diagnosis have on your mental health day to day? I would imagine, you're a successful corporate executive. How did you thrive?
That's a very good question. And it happened in small strides without even me noticing. And I would say the catalyst for me was when my son was born. I had a lot of anger issues. And at the time, my wife told me maybe you should seek help and talk to someone about it. And I did. And the thing that is amusing when I explain this to guys, because a lot of them are afraid to even go to therapy, because back to this masculinity stereotype, men have to power through, find, solve everything by themselves. And why would you ask for help, right? You should be able to actually do it yourself. And that's what, the way I grew up and what I believed in at the time. And I made kind of a deal with my wife, and I discussed that years later with my therapist. And I say, okay, if I do it, please do it. So we went together, and on purpose, kind of an act of sabotage, which is crazy to say now, I chose a therapist whom I believed I would see only once in my life. So I chose someone tattooed head to toe, more of a biker, Harley Davidson kind of a vibe. And I said to myself, I would say, check, I did it. And then I was secretly thinking my wife would continue and I would not. And so I went to the first session, opened up fully, emptied my bag, as they say. And what he told me changed my life. He said to me, you have a lot of fire in you. Do you think we could work well together? And I was floored that a therapist would actually put the decision making on me at the time. And then I worked with him for, I think it was about 4 years.
Wow. The mental health toll of infertility is profound, yet men are expected to be the strong partner. And it sounds like a lot of things were happening internally. How did it impact your relationship with your wife?
It was actually very difficult. But at the same time, I don't want to scare people, because the journey in itself, whether you seek treatment or not, is hard. And, if you go to my Instagram, I've said that in some comments online, and people don't always understand what I mean, because I've read it and there were studies about it. Like a diagnosis of infertility can have the same impact or effects as a cancer diagnosis for many people. There is a lot of grieving that needs to be done. And my wife, and I love her, to the moon and back, as we say to each other, took it very well. And, we joined forces and we tackled it as a unit. It was hard to see her go through the injections that I was administering, to, the ups and downs of the journey. In the end, it's a happy end, and I'm grateful for my 2 kids. Not everybody has that chance, and I recognize that also, because I talk to a lot of men every month, and they're still, in the middle of the journey. But I think that it's like any relationship major event, the loss of a loved one, raising up the kids. It was a difficult challenge, and I'm glad we got some help to go through it all.
No doubt infertility can certainly fracture or deepen a relationship in so many unexpected ways. Why do you think men rarely speak openly about the emotional side of infertility?
That's a very good question. I would say for having participated myself in a men's group that had no fertility focus, that in general, as men, we believe we cannot trust each other and go deep in terms of opening up, vulnerability, and having deep conversations. It's easy for us to talk about the weather, politics, whatever sports events around a glass of something at a bar, but we are not trained from a young age, and we don't have maybe role models as fathers to open up as men. And it's perceived as a weakness, because maybe early on in life we realize that when we do it, People take advantage of that authenticity and vulnerability. And when I discovered a men's group, what it is a bunch of guys, meeting at the time we were doing weekly with the leader, because it's not just free flow and speech. There is a structure to it, because we work better as men under a given structure. And then when you actually open up and get the resonance of other men in the room, it actually creates a change in you that will show also outside the men's group. When it comes to your kids, your parenting style, your relationship with your spouse. And I don't remember who the author was, but he had this idea online that every man should be part of a men's group or a tribe or a brotherhood, because it's balancing a lot your mental health. Mm-hmm. And it's also very important to know you're not alone. And there is a difference between knowing it and experiencing it. Every man, as men, we are going through many things during our lives, and infertility was one of the difficult parts for me. There are other things going on, in the men's group I was attending, and knowing that we have each other, you can open up and empty your bag and not being received by, with like a fear of judgment or feeling like less of a man because you have that going on in your life is very life changing as an experience. And those coming to my men's group experience that, as part of a infertility community, but it's also for them the first time they open up about any topic that are meaningful and deep with other men.
Those safe spaces and containers are something we need more of, and the silence is definitely something we need to change. How do men process grief differently regarding miscarriages, pregnancy losses, especially during IVF?
Yes. So during the last group, we talked about miscarriage, and I opened up about mine. And I would say, from what I've heard and talking to my wife and women, maybe a simple unifying kind of theme is we think the same as women. I remember a particular group where when you go through the process, you are actually trying to maximize the number of embryos before implantation so that you have a higher chance of success. And what happened there is usually you start with a lot of them, and as you wait a few days till they go to what is called the blastocyst phase, you lose a lot of them. And not saying we should generalize in terms of numbers, but you could be starting with 20 and ending with 1 or even 0. And one of the guys said, when I go through this process, I feel a lot of grief. It's like losing babies. And I had heard a woman say the same. Again, just to say that we are kind of similar in the way we approach it. One end is verbalized for the women. On the men's side is still a silent pain.
That difference in processing grief can create so much misunderstanding between partners. What parts of IVF do people often overlook when considering the male partner's experience?
So what is still surprising to me in 2026 is having guys coming to my group who've gone through a few rounds of IVF and then get tested after a few rounds. I wish we would live in a world where at the time the woman gets tested, the man gets tested as well. I still don't quite understand why it's not done automatically. I understand why men wouldn't want to do it, readily, because there is a lot of shame associated with the way it is done, how you collect, in what room, and the staff associated with that in a fertility clinic or setting. But this simple test can actually radically change the course of your infertility journey. If you, for instance, realize that your sperm count is 0, and it's called azoospermia, there is early on, right? Because you wouldn't go through IVF at that time, but you would realize that the options in front of you now are adoption or sperm donor. These are very hard options and decisions a guy or a woman will face. But I think that, doing IUI without, a semen analysis and trying to do all these things, you're actually wasting time in a way. And I'm floored to see it still happening where the men's side, as you were saying, is an afterthought, and later down the road gets, looked at.
Men are often physically less involved, but they carry just as much emotionally, perhaps even more. How can partners better support each other emotionally during treatment?
This is what I say to a lot of women, because a lot of them actually contact me to have their husband join my group. If you want to get the best support from your husband or partner, have him get supported. And the men's group is one step in the right direction. You could also have, a coach, a therapist, but you are best positioned to support somebody else when you feel supported yourself. Because if your mental health, because you're trying to power through, is degrading, the support quality you're providing to your spouse is going to suffer.
What role did mental health support play in your process, and when do you recommend men should seek it?
I would say it's never too early or too late to join. And what I also say to the guys who join for the first time is that the way it's structured, they don't have to say or participate much. The thing that I do at the beginning of a group is I kind of test the temperature in the room through an exercise where everybody has their eyes closed, and I kind of gauge who is willing to share or not. And if somebody is there for the first time just to listen, it's absolutely fine. Because I want to remove the shame associated with connecting on Zoom, entering a room where you know nobody, feeling like, what am I doing here? And almost ashamed of what will be said about me if I don't speak, if I speak up. And over 4 years of doing this, something that I feel very grateful for is the fact that even these men who are very ashamed, carrying a lot of guilt, usually in the span of the hour of the men group towards the end, they always open up. Again, not needed, but naturally occurring during the process. And I also do something in the end where if somebody shared a lot and was very emotional, men cry in those settings as well. I try to spotlight the individual, and then I ask everybody to have a kind word for the men I'm highlighting. And usually you can see a transformation. Like, who has ever received so much brotherly love from other men in like 5 minutes?
That message is so powerful. Seeking support builds strength, no doubt. Why can relying on family and friends sometimes be insufficient?
And again, at the risk of sounding provocative, and I've experienced it myself, so I will speak for myself. The resonance you get from a spouse, a therapist, or a men's group is different. I think you need all of them personally, but one cannot substitute the others. And for instance, there are topics where you don't want your wife to be your support, or even you cannot ask her to understand something that is hard for her to understand or picture. I'll give you an example. For a lot of women I've talked to, doing a semen analysis should be a must, and they don't understand why guys are like ashamed of it or they don't run for it. And my first kind of answer is to say, it's not a urine sample you're giving. It's very different. And once you've collected it, everybody knows what happened. And with this, you have to go most of the time to a female lab technician and handle the cup. It's not neutral, and it's hard to explain. Guys will get it. And they will actually open up and say it in a way that is direct, still respectful. But many don't understand why there is no men on staff, or why they are just shown the room. Or in my case, I was in the waiting room in a fertility clinic setting, surrounded by a lot of women, and they call my name, like shouting my name, first name. And I felt like this is humiliating. Everybody knows why I'm here. Why am I the only man here? So there is thing that could be done to ease, and normalize the semen analysis. And it's still not fully there in 2026.
What would you say to men who still believe they should go at this alone?
Oh, I say that a lot in my group. And this is what I'm going to repeat here. Imagine your energy to become a dad is a container. You could start at 100% and burn 90% on IVF, powering through like I did. When your kid will be born, whether IVF, sperm donor, or adoption, once you have your bundle of joy, you will have 10% left in the tank to be a dad. If you seek support, maybe you save 40%. And now you go at it with 50% kind of energy in your tank. Which do you think is the best dad in the equation?
Exactly. What was the turning point that made you want to start your own coaching business and help other men share their stories?
Maybe it was the fact that I kept everything so hidden for such a long time. Discussions with my therapist. He introduced me to men's groups. And while I was participating, he introduced me to men's group. And while I was participating in one, I discovered that maybe that's something I could be doing from listening to the other guys in my group. They supported me in, launching the coaching business. They supported me in going public. I remember we had challenges to do, and one of them for me was to distribute flyers in a commercial setting. And if I redistributed, I don't remember, 40 flyers, I wouldn't have a consequence, which was maybe doing push-ups. And I did. And I think what it taught me is you have to step into the uncomfortable to grow. And if you never do, this is fine, but growth will not be, happening. And it also taught me that there is a reciprocity in the process where if you help and support, you get, seeing these guys open up, grow, realize they're not alone, becoming fathers brings me a lot of gratitude and fills my cup.
It's amazing how you've turned personal pain into purpose. What surprised you the most when men began opening up in your containers?
A lot of the times, as I said earlier, they will all open up. I would say if I had, being a scientist, if I were to run statistics, 99% will open up during the 1 hour. Another thing that surprised me is the fact that they come back every month. The spacing, if you think of it, for my free group is about every 4 weeks, the last Thursday of the month. And I've had people, attend on and off for many years, 4 years. Another thing that I found very touching is for those guys who have the privilege to become dads, they hesitate to come back to the group once they know to share with the other men because they feel, it might be hard for them to hear it. We talk about, baby showers and, spending weekends with people with young children, which is hard for women and men to experience. So people tend to not do that, avoid, settings where there is a lot of kids because they're struggling to get their own kids. But that's another one that had me very touched when, they come back. And also I get random emails of people thanking me after, and then they share with me the pregnancy news. Some I can actually see in person after the fact. So, a lot of gratitude, literally. I feel very grateful.
Can you share with us an example of vulnerability in your men's group?
Yeah, so an example will be, there is a lot of guys in my group who are diagnosed with what is called azoospermia, where you have 0 sperm in your semen, and so you cannot conceive naturally with your own kids. A lot of them are feeling a lot of shame for not being willing to consider adoption or sperm donation or a sperm donor right away. In most cases, I've seen the woman is already set on one path and is waiting for the partner to make up his mind. And they feel a lot of guilt, and it's hard for them to articulate. And then all the what ifs, what if he or she doesn't look like me? What am I going to tell him, her? Am I right to feel this way? And then we discuss, as a group, everybody is adding, their 2 cents coming from a place of love. And it helps them, feel less guilty. But a lot of guilt and shame is very present in the container every month.
Why is it that men do not prioritize self-care?
That's a very good question. And this could be also related to annual checkups. I'm still, forgetting, and thank God I have my wife reminding me to go and get checked. I think it's still ingrained in this outdated model of what it is to be a man, self-sufficient. Strength is perceived as not seeking any help. The one particular kind of like place where it's readily accepted to get help is fitness for men, which I find kind of interesting because I keep saying therapy is just the mind fitness.
Right.
So if you want to build a physique and exercise regularly and you get a coach for that, why wouldn't you consider one, for your mental health? Because it's as important. And I would say it's maybe because they're not used to, or we are not used to open up. And therapy is building a rapport with another person and then being willing to open up. And the growth starts, or the work starts when you do so. There is also something a lot of guys tell me. They ask me if I'm a therapist, and I'm not. And they are seeking male therapists rather than female therapists because they feel they might be better understood. And if you look at the profession as a whole, there is a shortage in terms of male therapists right now. And so it's not very easy for men to find the support. My own experience with therapy, and it was a male therapist, there is maybe less nurturing and less motherly kind of love from the therapist, and way more assertiveness, directness, challenge in a positive way. And maybe that's what men are seeking and they're not receiving if they work with a female therapist or a coach. There is people on Instagram coaching coaches or therapists on how to work with men. I think the work is different compared to women because we are wired a bit different.
If a man is listening to this, why should he join your support group?
This is going to be a surprising reply or answer. And I would say, because he doesn't want to join. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I was one of them. So I'm not going to pretend joining is easy and it's something you would do readily, because I was not, in this boat. And the entry level is also very low because it's free and you don't have to talk if you don't want to. So just hop on a call, grab a chair, glass of water, and just listen.
How does cultural expectation around masculinity contribute to silence?
For this, I will mention one of my posts that went viral, and maybe I need to tell you the story behind it. So I was about to travel for business to Paris, and I saw a post made by someone that I found very telling. And the way the post looks is, all the syringes that are empty without needles used for all the cycles this couple went through is forming a heart. And at the center, you see a dad placing a kid. And I found it very poetic. And the dad was involved, which I found very powerful because a lot of men are not represented in the fertility journey. And there is a feature on Instagram where you can actually repost it. And I added just one sentence and the post went viral. And with this came a lot of, negative comments, hurtful comments. And as I was traveling, I decided to place a disclaimer as a comment that I pinned at the top of the post saying, listen, all I want to do here is bring awareness when it comes to male infertility. There is a lot of injections. It's a difficult journey for both men and women. And, show some compassion, unconditional positive regard. I'm done with everything. I have my kids. I decided to go public with my own diagnosis. And with that came, everything. But please think about the fact that other people, brothers, are in the process right now and could be hurt by your comments. Out of, I believe it's almost 4 million views now. A lot of the comments did actually calm down, but you can still see a lot of nasty things of people judging. Are you playing with God? This is nature's way to tell you shouldn't have kids. You should adopt. All these comments. And they come from a place of fear and pain because these people don't have a good understanding of what the journey is. And I'm not mad at these comments or I don't take them personally. But this is still the reason why men don't want to go public with this. Because at the end of the day, this is what I keep telling people. And, I started commenting back and then I stopped. And, now I just block people if it's going, out of work a little. But the thing that I still don't understand in today's society, the way we live together is you might have an opinion about something or you decide to do something one way and somebody has the opposite way of doing it. There is no right or wrong, and we should coexist with different, opinions and ways of thinking. Unfortunately, if you don't think like me, most of the time, you're the enemy. And that's what's been fed to us. And we've lost a lot of that. And, your relationship to your own infertility, whether you believe in a God or not, whether you consider a bunch of cells at the 3-day mark, you can freeze, by the way, is already an embryo or not? Is it already life or not? All this is good by me. You can choose to say this is babies already. You could choose to say it's not. But where we don't have the answer, we should agree to choose whatever we want to believe in and coexist with these beliefs.
Exactly. And changing that narrative is exactly why we need more important conversations like this. Do you still find it hard to tell your story?
I'll be honest with you, yeah. So last group, I talked about the miscarriage we went through. during the discharge ultrasound with my wife, and I was very emotional, opening up with the other guys. On the call, I believe we were 9 people, 8 had experienced miscarriage. It's still an open wound. So yes, I get emotional at times about it, but I know it's the right thing to do because, again, if one soul somewhere in the world listening to this realizes that he or she is not alone, I think that's mission accomplished.
And sharing something so personal, so public, that's what's going to break the silence, no doubt. What practical steps can we take to normalize conversations around male infertility?
I think that it's important to remember the statistics. 1 in 6 couples today are going through this journey and are struggling to get kids. As you said earlier, half of the equation, half of the time it's men. And maybe it's not exactly half, but roughly speaking. And at work or among my friends, I've said, if you ask and look around, you always find somebody going through it right now. And normalizing that it's a fact of life, whether it's, the food, the air we breathe, the water we drink, all this is irrelevant. Today, getting kids is not easy for everyone. And the more we talk about that part already, the more people get informed. And on the male side, the more they get tested. Things have changed as well, where you can test from home. You can have qualitative test kits sent to your home. So if you still have a lot of shame about it, like I did, I totally get that. But there is a way to at least know if some is off. I don't recommend just to do the at-home test. You should follow up with a regular test. But you cannot stay in the dark and not knowing what your baseline is.
For a man who's listening to us today, who just received hard fertility news, what would you want him to hear or know?
There is support out there. There is free support. There is support where you can pay for $10 and get something you can read. You don't need to talk to anybody. There is therapy if you're open to it. And there is a difference between knowing you're not alone and experiencing you're not alone. And whether it's an in-person group, a regular men's group, a fertility-focused group, invest into one group, 1 hour of your life and see what it does to you. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's for everyone because everybody has different styles, but if you realize the power in terms of healing of what it brings to you to open up to other men, I think you're up to a good start, and it will ease the difficult journey you're about to embark on.
Such powerful, impactful advice, especially coming from you. What is your go-to reset when you're not feeling like the best version of yourself?
Working out. It's always been, and over the years, I got a lot of injuries. So I did triathlon, half marathon, Tough Mudders. My joints are not in the best shape. So I tend to go swim because it's easier on my body. But to clear my mind, always a good workout. And I discovered, and I'm leading them as well, during the pandemic, that you could actually work out during Zoom sessions. And it's a lot of fun.
I love the tools that you use to reconnect with yourself, and you share basically that it's like a meditation in motion. So that's exactly. A great, powerful way to just get a better mindset. What are you most grateful for nowadays?
My family. I'm really grateful for my family, for science, and for being here today with you.
Thank you. Gratitude can certainly change your perspective, especially after a difficult journey. What is a thought pattern or habit that dismantled your belief system?
I believe in affirmations. So I have kind of a ritual that I do almost every evening before going to bed. I list in my head 5 things I'm afraid of for the following day, 5 things I'm grateful for, and then I do 2 affirmations. And that has helped me going through the motions sometimes when things are not always, aligning correctly, or in terms of sometimes when I have some difficulties. And maybe that helped me to become a coach.
And that mental shift can be life-changing, no doubt. Share with us your preferred social media and where someone can sign up and join your group.
All right. So if you want to sign up for the group, it's called Resolve for Men. You just Google it and you will be directed to a page where you can sign up. But you can also access the same link from my Instagram account. And the handle is 4, like the number 4.consulting.
Johan, thank you so much for all you do, your amazing work, and sharing your personal story. I know it takes a lot, but your conversation that we're having will definitely continue to hopefully break the silence.
Thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure.